Well, welcome everybody. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, interest, and of course, dedication to RTI. Hardware and software, hardware and those cool gadgets, they always get all the attention and fanfare. But today we're discussing the software, which really makes that experience memorable for your clients and make them so happy that the referral sales will start to stack up more and more and more for you. And that is the beauty and the announcement that we're going to make today with the Integration Designer 11. Tons of time and effort behind the scenes have culminated in the release, which is the foundation for the future of RTI and for all of our dealers. We're so pleased to welcome all of our brand new and longtime integration partners from all over the globe here today. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about what is Integration Designer. The new time-saving features, the immaculate client experience that they're going to get out of this. We want to make sure that you have an update of who should update and how, and the different versions, what that means for you from Integration Designer. We're going to provide you with some resources and the ability to continue your learning, and of course, demonstrate, because seeing is believing. So we want to make sure that you have all the tools, you have an idea of what you're getting yourself into, and all that fun stuff. So my name is Tyler Nelson. I am the National Training Manager for RTI, and I'll be hosting the call today alongside with Vincent Bova, who will be showcasing the demonstration. We also have Jib Koenig, who's our National Sales Director, and Angela Madrid as panelists to help answer any questions that you may have. Of course, we will have time for a live Q&A at the end, but if you do have questions during the presentation today, please submit them into the question and answer section, not the chat window, so that we can get those answered for you right away and keep track of them in case we miss any of them. Any specific programming questions that you may have, that are a little bit more in depth, let's make sure to submit those to either in the Q&A area or the dealer experience, and you can send us an email at dealerexperience@rticontrol.com, and we'll make sure to get those answered for you. And of course, we are recording the session to share with those who can't make it today, or if you just want to hear our glorious voices once again. So with that, let's get going. For our partners who are on the phone and are brand new to RTI, let's discuss a little bit about what Integration Designer is and why it's so unique. Integration Designer is an award-winning CDA Hall of Fame product, which is actually software. It's what you dealers use to configure and program the products both on the back end and what the end user sees and operates. And it's come from a long history line of a constant state of evolution. Integration Designer was first introduced in 2007, and with 9 iterations was an incredible first step in that next generation of programming. It introduced features like drag and drop programming, full customization, direct app navigation without having to do any coding. And then the next evolution of this, taking the knowledge we learned, was Integration Designer 10, otherwise known as Apex, and it ushered in a huge time-saving features such as auto programming for common devices and button and image resizing. Well, today, RTI is proud to introduce Integration Designer 11, the next step in the evolutionary process, and arguably one of the most powerful ones we've put out yet. Integration Designer 11 has some very cool new features. First and foremost is we're going to maintain that singular programming platform for all of our devices, no matter how large or small the project may be, from residential to commercial. We're going to include things like a rapid preset programming template along with a full customization capability. So you can use our templates that we create for you, which are absolutely gorgeous, new Corral template, or you can modify our templates that we give you or do full custom demo. It's totally your choice based on the project. We've created an enhanced auto generation of new room and activity menus for you so that you create a faster experience. And our dealers, you crave for that. We want to be able to get those lists faster. We want to get those room selections faster. Well, we've delivered with ID9. In fact, we've even created what's called a system manager to provide feedback for a variety of new scenarios. We're helping our dealers track it all, make their programming lives easier. So you're not having to create, internal based logic. Our system manager does all of that for you. We are also including a new built-in cloud-based driver storage with automatic updates. It means all of the drivers that you're going to currently use are going to be built into the software itself and be automatically updated as long as you're on the network, of course, and make sure that you have the latest and greatest of all those. So you won't have to download them each and every time we launch a new one. They're going to be automatically populated into your driver window. And of course, we want to make sure that you can offer those really unique interfaces for those specific devices, like a Roku or a Sonos or an Apple TV. We've taken the lead and helped our dealers with additional source page templates that optimize that user experience. And again, saves you time and money while you're improving that customer's experience. And this is why Integration Designer is going to deliver our fastest custom installation software and programming ever. So the software launch, where are you with Integration Designer? What version are you on? Well, if you're currently using Integration Designer Apex, you need to update today. There's no reason not to. Apex files can be open in ID 11, and you'll be able to transfer those over, no problem, start right off the bat and be good to go. Now, I know a lot of you may still be using Integration Designer 9. That's okay. You know what? You need to download Integration Designer 11 for all of your new projects starting today. Any new project you're working with, start it off with Integration Designer 11. You do want to keep that ID 9 software on your computer, but only to maintain your own projects. Do not create any new projects in ID 9. You want to make sure that you get the latest and greatest of all the features and capabilities that Integration Designer has now and in the future. So make sure you do ID 11 for all of your new projects starting today. And if you're brand new to RTI, we have numerous resources dedicated to get you up and running fast. Speaking of those resources, our brand new Integration Designer page on the website will give you a ton of information, or you can attend some of our live trainings that are coming up. We've got some Integration Designer 10 or Apex to Integration Designer 11, kind of a conversion training, if you will, coming the 26th and 28th of April. And we've got some Integration Designer 9 to Integration Designer 11 trainings coming up for you as well, the first part of May. We're also going to have a number of different online training modules available for you beginning next week. So we're trying to give you as much as we can in regards to Integration Designer 11, but it is overflowing with new updates, features that benefit both the user and the integrator. I could list them all out one by one, bullet point by bullet point until we're all blue in the face, but that's just incredibly boring. So instead, I want to turn it over to our professor of programming, our guru of GUIs, Mr. Vincent Bova, the director of our dealer experience, to show you what you can expect from the new Integration Designer 11. So Vincent, take it away, my friend.
Thank you, Tyler, and welcome RTI dealers from all over the world. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the next generation of RTI software, Integration Designer 11. We've added a brand new Coral template which has been professionally designed and auto-programmed to save you time. We've added some built-in intelligence in our system manager, which keeps track of important information in this software, such as rooms, activities, sources, and their respective states. We now have an express lane designed for those projects that you need to get in and out of. We continue to be the fastest custom software in the world with some features our dealers and their clients are going to love. I'm excited, so let's get to it. Let's get right into Coral. Here we are in a project file, and we're looking at a KA11, and as I scroll through these pages, look at how laid out and professionally designed this template is. I didn't do a thing except add the pages here, and you're going to see a beautiful template that's already laid out and designed for you. Special functions built in this software with special standard tags. Very little work is needed to design this interface. Of course, this interface is backed by the powerful system manager, which we'll get through in a second. Let's take a look at some of the specifics of the Coral interface and how we made life easier for you. Let's add a controller. I'm going to go and add an iPad to this room. So I'm going to select my iPad, and we're going to call this Joe's iPad. And we're going to remove anything that we don't need to show on the iPad. Now, we're going to show you some options that are now part of the Coral template. List menus and button menus. If you want to get out of the project quickly, if you want to basically have everything done for you, a room list, source list, and power off list, there you go. List menus are your option. Button menus are when you want to have the ability to customize your buttons, and we give you that ability with some added features that are even going to make that process a lot smoother. We also give you dashboards, which we'll show you in a minute. Let's give a list menu template with a now playing dashboard for Joe's iPad, and let's add this device. Once the device is added, you're going to see a beautiful interface which is basically programmed for you from start to finish. All the page jumps, all the variables are all programmed for you. You don't have to do a thing. You press room, your rooms pop up. You press sources, your rooms go away and your sources pop up. You press your power menu, your power menu pops up, giving you the ability to turn off the AV in the room or in the whole house. You also have the ability to turn off the lights in the room or the whole house as well if you have the lights in the system. The template again has everything done for you. All the navigation is laid out and done so you don't have to do a thing. If you want to do some added customization, maybe change a couple of the apps, no problem. It'll just take you a couple of seconds. Now let's look at the dashboards that we give you for the list menus. Here you're going to see our weather and now playing dashboard. The now playing dashboard will allow you to view and preview any of your music or even video on this system as long as you have the support for it. You want to get this programmed? All you got to do is go to the layer, select the layer properties, and now just aim your layer at the source device that you want to preview. In this case, we're going to select RTI Music, Player 1. Bam, that's programmed for you. No work needed other than that. So you could develop these dashboards. Let's show you some more dashboards and the list menu and the button menus. So I'm going to go to my controllers and I'm going to add an iPhone in this case. So let's add our iPhone X or newer, select next, and now we're going to select button menus for lights and climate. Let's call this Gina's iPhone. Of course, I'm going to remove any pages I don't need that are not programmed, and now I'll add that device. Now you're going to see what button menus are. Button menus are a way for you to do some customizing without doing a lot of work. Here's your dashboard where you'll see the weather, some scenes, and even climate. Now, if you don't have any lighting in your system, you could still use this template. Simply go to the layer and remove the lights, and now you can use this for house scenes. Maybe set a mood with some music when you walk in, or anything else you want in your RTI ecosystem. Let's take a look at the button menus. So first we'll go to the room selections. So here's what I mean by button menus. We give you the ability to customize these. Go to your bitmaps, go to your Coral icons that we give you, search for room, and here are all the rooms that you can add here. You can even have commercial devices as well. You want to add a media room? Simply drag and drop and change the text on the button. So that's our button menus. Now, you might think that, well, this is just going back to the old way of doing things, but it's not. Once you get to your sources, and I'll just select our sources here, when you see a source, like our Blu-ray player, for example, if you have a Blu-ray in the system, which we did, you're just going to drag a tag over for that Blu-ray, and boom, you're done on the button level. This is going to select the activity and ask System Manager to run the activity that was set up in the current room, whichever room is selected, for the Blu-ray. And since we're using a matrix system in this project, we got both rooms controlling the Blu-ray. So this macro here will be good for both rooms. That's right, macros are no longer programmed on the button level. You don't have to go and program your instructions on your iPhone, your iPad, your KA11. Now your macros are done in a single location, thanks to the power of System Manager. We're going to take a look at that in a minute. Now, we do recommend using the list menus because that's going to add the added capability of being able to add rooms, have them automatically populate in the list, add sources, automatically populate in the source list. Your power menu is already designed to go and give the instruction to turn off the current room. And you'll just program this in System Manager instead of programming a routine again on several different controllers. There's even a routine to turn off the power in all rooms. And thanks to System Manager and its tracking capabilities that we'll speak about, you'll have the ability to turn off only the rooms that are on, that have been turned on in this session, no matter which controller turned them on. So let's go and take a look at the System Manager and how it works. Let's start by programming the activities in our family room. I'm going to go to my family room in the system tree and just select it. I'm now going to select my activities. Here is our System Manager activity events. This will really help you out when it comes to list menus, but this is where you program your macros in Integration Designer 11, no matter what you're doing, whether you're using a list menu, a button menu, or a custom template or your custom own work. Let's show you how this works, because many of these features are going to allow you to use list menus more efficiently. The enable function is the first column that you see here. You can control what appears in your list menu or doesn't appear simply by checking or unchecking any of these activities. For example, I don't need an activity from my TV family room since I'm not using any functions. So I'm going to uncheck that activity and watch it go to the bottom. I don't need a Zone 1 video activity because that's from my matrix switch. So I'm going to uncheck that and it will go to the bottom as well. I do need an Apple TV activity, so I'll check that activity as well. And now I have my activities that I need for my room. You can always go back here and enable anything you want later on. And this will allow you to determine what appears in your list menu. Next is your source type. This is important for any kind of button system you're using, whether you're going button menus, list menu, or custom. It's important to classify your source properly. Let's take a look at the classifications. You have video, you have audio, and you have other. Video sources require a display. Audio sources do not, and they're usually used when you're listening to music or listening to an audio signal. Other is other types of sources, home pages, lighting, automation, anything that requires a page jump or nothing else pretty much. So you're going to go and make sure that the software did a good job of classifying these properly, which it did. So we'll go through these real quick. Whether other, the video sources have been classified right. My audio, RTI Music, Player 1 has been classified properly. My home page has been set right. My Apple TV is video. Next, you're going to want to group these a little more logically in your list menus. So you can move these up and down using the move up and down feature at the top of the list. So for example, I want my weather to appear last. So I'm going to go and click this a few times and move this to the bottom of my list menu. My home dashboard jump, I'm going to move that up to the top. And since I like to group audio and video together with like sources, I'm going to move Apple TV up above the music so that it's paired with all the video sources. Now the client is going to have a logical order, and he's going to have the sources he used most on top, and they're going to be grouped accordingly. Next, if you're using list menus, you can control what that source has been named in the list. So let's go and do that. Let's give these logical names. Sometimes you'll give it a name very descriptive in the tree, which is great for programming purposes, but could be confusing for a client. So we'll give these proper names. Let's call the Blu-ray Watch Blu-ray. And we'll call cable TV Watch Cable. Our Roku player will be Watch Roku. And our Apple TV will be Watch Apple TV. RTI Music Player 1 is going to be simplified. We're just going to call this Listen to Music. And if there were others in the system, we would be a little bit more specific. Weather, we could just call this Weather Forecast, but that was fine on its own. Don't worry about the sources that are unchecked. We can always add those later on and decide what to name them and how to order them. So now we have a list menu that's sorted properly, categorized properly, only the available sources and nothing else are included, and they're named the way the client's going to understand it. All right, so happens that this is where we also program System Manager activity events. That's right, we've revolutionized the way you program macros now, and we've added a tracking system called System Manager. We're going to talk a lot about System Manager throughout the training. So we're going to start from the top of the list. I usually start with the topmost feature, but I'm going to start with a video feature, Blu-ray, because once you know how to program this, you can program anything. Now, you're going to see different events that you program for the Blu-ray. And not only do these events fire, based on the macro, but they also understand when they need to run and when they don't need to run. For example, the System Manager is going to know when the room is on or off, when the video in the room is on and off, and for video devices, when the audio is on or off. It's going to know when your source is on, whether you turned it on here in the family room or it's been turned on in another room. And of course, it's going to be able to select different inputs. Let's get to it. So let's start with our selection events. What happens when you press Watch Blu-ray? Well, the first selection event fires in the list, Activity Start. Fortunately, we've given you some text directions below, highlighted in the yellow box, which will tell you exactly how to program each of these, making your learning simple. And it says this macros run whenever any activity is selected before anything else is done. You can use this to send the controller to a please wait page. So it's meant for please wait pages. It also tells you the macro is common to all activities in this room, meaning if you program it once here for the Blu-ray, you don't have to program it for any other sources. Common to most of these. So let's program the please wait page if you have one. If you don't have one, move on. I happen to have one in my list, so I'm going to go to my macro steps and I'm going to go and bring my please wait page link in here. And I'm going to select my please wait from my list of sources. Now the controller will jump to the please wait page. Not just a specific controller, any controller running this command. It doesn't matter if it's Gina's iPhone, Joe's iPad, the KA11, or the T4X in the family room. So let's move on to the next System Manager activity event. Room on. This macro is run when an audio or video source is selected and the room is currently off. Because the System Manager knows when the room is on or off, it's only going to fire this if nobody turned this room on. And it says you can use this to turn on any equipment that's used between audio and video. So what this means is this is where you turn on anything in the room that will have to turn on whether you select a video source like the Blu-ray cable Roku Apple or an audio source. In this example, the RTI Music. Since RTI Music is a source on our receiver and our video sources need to turn on with the receiver, we'll turn on our receiver here. Let's go bring in a command and we'll select our receiver and we'll select the power function for the family room and turn on the receiver. Remember, only devices that share a audio and video function. And if you only have one or another in the room, then fine, this would work too. But if you were using audio distribution for your audio equipment only and not the receiver, you couldn't program this here. Video on. This is available for only the video sources. Audio sources have audio on. And this says, this macro is run when a video source is selected and the room is not currently on a video source. So here's some more tracking capability of System Manager. It knows when a source is selected. It knows that it's going to run the video on when a video source is selected and the room is not currently on a video source. Maybe it's off, or maybe you're listening to music. So here's where you're going to turn on your display or projector, and it even tells you that. And it says it's common to all video activities in the room. So no need to program this for all your other video activities. So let's go and bring in our command here, and let's turn on our TV in this room. Beautiful. We've turned on our video source. Now we move down to power on source. And slowly we're getting introduced to the power and tracking capability of System Manager. This macro is run when the first room in the system begins using this source. For you guys that are using video distribution, matrix switchers, video over IP, splitters, now it knows when this source needs to turn on and off, but it will know to send a power on command if this is the first room that asks to use the activity. So this is where you turn on the power to the source. So let's do it. Let's go to our commands. Let's select our Blu-ray player. And now let's go and select the function. If I select the letter P, it'll take me down to my IR commands for P. Power on. Let's move on. Activity selected. This macro is run to configure the equipment in the room to use this source. At this point, all the on macros have been run. The room turned on, turning on the receiver, which is shared by the audio and video. The video turned on, which turned on the TV. The source turned on, and now it's activity selected time. This macro is run after everything else is run and used to configure signal routing on everything that switches, displays, receivers, matrix switchers, audio distribution, processors, preprocessors, anything you have that switches. So let's do it. We're going to bring in a command here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my matrix to the right input. Let's select the matrix input, the family room, and the Blu-ray player. Now we still have to select the receiver, so let's bring in the other command here, and let's turn the receiver to its right input. We'll select our receiver, head down to the inputs, and select the right input. HDMI 1 is fine. Let's not forget our television, which also always has to be on an input. So let's bring in the command for the TV. Select the Samsung, we'll select the input source, and select the right TV and the input. And now we're set. Activity ready. Okay, everything is run, and now it needs to jump to the appropriate page. Okay, this is automatically programmed for us as long as we enable the device in the list. And now this will jump to the Blu-ray interface. So we've programmed all the selection events. Let's recap. The activity started and jumped to a please wait page. If you didn't have one, you wouldn't add it. The room turned on, and it turned on anything that's common to both audio and video. In this case, we at least have to turn our receiver when audio or video turns on. This is probably a good step to like make sure our temperature is right in the room or anything else that as long as the audio and video need it. Video on. This will turn on the TV if you're coming from an audio source or a power off state. Then the source will power on as long as this family room is the first room to use the Blu-ray player. And that's great for toggle devices, although this Blu-ray isn't. Activity selected will switch the inputs as long as you're not on the Blu-ray player already. And then activity ready will jump to the Blu-ray page on whatever controller is running this. Now it's time to program the deselection events. And this is all about System Manager not only tracking by selecting, but by deselecting. Let's get into it. Room off start. Now, room off start doesn't really have much to do with deselecting the Blu-ray, but it's used at the beginning of the room off command that I showed you in that layer list. So whenever the room off command is run, this will send the controller to a please wait page if you happen to have one. So just like our activities, I need to do one for our power off sequence as well. So let's go and bring the page link in again and select our please wait page from the list. Okay, again, if you don't have one, you just keep moving on. Activity deselected. This macro is run after another source is selected or the system is turned off. So I'm watching the Blu-ray and I decide now to select another source, or I decide to turn the room off. Now, of course, it's going to turn off the Blu-ray from the power off source, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. This will run first and is particularly useful if you jump from the Blu-ray to another source rather than power off the system. Now, it does say this is rarely needed and you might not ever need to program anything here, but I could think of one that might work for us. Maybe there are times when we're watching a movie and we want to get a sports score. So we're watching the Blu-ray and we forget to pause it and we jump over to the cable box and we get engrossed in the sports game. We get our sports score and go back to our Blu-ray, only to find that our movie has progressed without us, without us asking to. So what we could do here is put in a pause command for our Blu-ray if we want, which will pause the player whenever we switch to another source or turn off the system first. Okay, so this will run first. Now again, completely optional, but if you have a good use, System Manager is at your service. Power off source. This, of course, will do what the power on source did, except the opposite. This macro is run after no rooms are using this source. So picture this. Both the family room and the kitchen are watching the same movie, but you turn off the family room. System Manager is smart enough to know that someone else is watching Blu-ray in another room, so it won't power off the source, not until the last room turns it off. So let's put a command in here to turn off the Blu-ray. Now here's a little power tip. Let's go to the power on source. We'll just copy this command by selecting the copy feature in the macro area. We'll go down to the power off source and paste it using the paste feature. And now we can change power on here to power off pretty easily. So it might save you a little bit of time. Okay, video off is going to be used when a video source is no longer in use because an audio source was selected or because the room was turned off. So what do you think we want to do when the room is turned off or an audio source is selected while we're watching a video, or the Blu-ray in this case? Well, I can think of one thing we're going to want to do. I'm going to go copy the video on and I'm going to at least turn off the TV in that step. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to turn off my TV. So that's something I might want to do. Okay, so video off will turn off your TV. Room off is going to run when the room is turned off. Okay? So whether audio or video has been run, this is going to turn off the room. So room on turns on the receiver. Let's copy this, paste it into the room off, and now we're going to set this off. All right, room off complete. Now room off complete is when you power off the system. And what this is auto-programmed to do by default is if a global controller runs this command, it's going to jump to the global home page for whatever controller runs it. If it's a local room controller like our T4X in the family room and our T2X in the kitchen, it's going to jump to its own respective home page. So this command right here will get all your controllers back to where they need to be. But then you have to remember that when they powered off the system, the power off layer was exposed. This command, show menu activities, will make sure that once the house is turned, well, the room or the home is turned off, that now that the menu will be resting on an activity selection, ready for next time, instead of leaving the client stuck on a power off option menu. So, if you want to change these to jump to a welcome page, you can. However, I think these dashboards make great welcome pages because they allow the client to see some quick overviews of their home, and you can even customize them if you feel like doing that. But they're great by default. All right, so now we've programmed the System Manager activity events for the Blu-ray player. Now, our life is going to be much easier from this point on. So if we select the cable TV, activity start. It already knows what to do when the activity starts, thanks to the Blu-ray programming. So it'll jump to the please wait page. Room on. It already knows what to do when the family room turns on for either a video or an audio device. It's got to turn on the receiver. So our work is done there. Video on. It already knows it needs to turn on the TV if the room is off or coming from an audio step. So it'll make sure the TV's on for us. Power on source. So again, just to remind you, we have to program this for every source, but it says this macros run when the first room in the system begins using this source. So System Manager can track when this needs to send, which is a good thing because if I go to my commands from my cable box, unfortunately, I only have a power toggle for my power button, I don't have a power on. I just have this power toggle, which is fine because again, it knows when it needs to turn on the cable box and it needs to turn off the cable box. Even if someone in another room on another controller turned off the cable box on us or the room off on us, it would know not to run this command because there's at least one room using it. So power toggles, completely fine. Activity selected, which does the inputs, well, that needs to be programmed also. Here's a quick power tip. I like to jump back to my Blu-ray, since most of these functions are the same for my cable, copy this, then go back to my cable, select activity selected, paste this in here, and just change what needs to change. In this case, only my matrix needs to change. Activity ready? Done for us. And activity ready is done for us. Room off start on the deselection, done for us. Deselected, rarely used. If you could think of anything useful for your client, that's where you would put it. And this is run when the system turns off or another source is selected. Maybe it makes sense to put a pause, maybe it doesn't, just in case the client's watching his DVR. Power off source. Again, this is going to be the opposite of the power on source. So let's go and borrow this power on source and we'll toggle this off. No flag tracking needed, okay? Now, you might wonder what will happen if my system gets off track, because System Manager tracks by what's run and what's selected, just like lots of other different control systems out there. Now there's two ways to heal your system if it gets off track. Either give your client a power page menu or simply have him turn off and turn on the system. That will get things back to normal. Video off, program for us. Room off, program for us. Room off complete, done. So there's no need, once you program one macro, there's no need to program a lot more. Let's do an audio one. And the only difference with the audio one is that instead of having video on, it has audio on and audio off instead of video on and video off. Activity start, it already knows what to do. Room on, done. Audio on, well, this is where you turn on any audio specific equipment. Okay, so it's run when an audio source is selected and the room is not currently on an audio source. Maybe you're coming from an off position, or maybe you're coming from a video position. So since this is part of an audio distribution amp, let's go here and turn on our zone. We'll go to our zone commands and we'll power on our family room. Now, since we might be coming from a video source, let's turn off the TV here. So I'm going to go to my TV here, and I'm going to just turn off my television in the family room if I select music. Again, totally optional, but if that's how your client wants it, then do it. If he doesn't want it this way, then don't do it. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to just put a little time delay in here, which is perfectly fine if you want to do it. Okay, power on source, don't need to program that for RTI music. Activity selected, well, this is where it does the switching. So let's go and we'll get our receiver. Let's bring in a command. It's the easiest way to do it. Let's go to our receiver and switch the input on our receiver. And we'll make this audio 1. And we'll go and switch our amp, our audio amp 2. Let's go and go to our AD64. Let's go to our zone commands and we'll, oops, I meant to source select the family room RTI music. And of course, if you want to put a time delay in there, more than welcome to do that. Activity ready is programmed. Room off start is programmed. Deselected, maybe you want to pause the player. It says you really need to add anything here, so I feel good about skipping it unless the client wants to solve a problem. Power off source, well, there is no power off. Maybe you can pause your player. So I can go here, bring in a command, go to my RTI music, and drop down here to my pause command and pause my player if I want. This way it's paused in case it's still streaming. Audio off. Now audio off is generally the same as audio on. Audio off is going to run when the audio is no longer in use because either a video source was selected or because the room was turned off. So let's copy audio on, but I'm not going to turn on the TV. Let the video on handle that. Oops, I copied the wrong step. My apologies. Let's go to the audio on here and copy this into the audio off. But we're just going to turn off the amp. We're not going to worry about turning on the TV. The video step will take care of that. We're just going to turn off our family room. Room off's already done. Room off complete's already done. Now, when you have other types of sources, we don't give you much because there's no switching involved. There's really not much involved, but you can do certain stuff. Activity selected. This will do the signal routing if you're jumping to a home page or any other page. Since that's not needed generally for another page, I'll skip it. Activity ready is already programmed. In this case, it's going to jump to the home page, whether it's in global or the individual room controller. And activity deselected. I don't need to deselect anything for the home page or any other page like the weather or any other type, so we'll leave that. So that's the system manager and its incredible tracking. We're going to follow up with some amazing features, variables that are also created with System Manager at the end of the webinar. Now let's start looking at some of the other cool features in the software. Now remember I told you that those list menus can be customized with the right source name, the order of the sources, and what's included? Well, if you select a controller, and I'll just select Joe's iPad here, if I select room list, I can, defeat a room from showing up in the list. So if I don't want the kitchen to show up in my list, I'll just uncheck it, okay? But I want to, so I'll leave it. But you can, if you have a lot of rooms, you can, maybe it's a kid's iPad, maybe you can remove a room from it so it doesn't show up in the list, like a bedroom or maybe a room that has like a bar or something like that. So you have that capability. So that's a cool feature. All right, let's talk about integrated drivers now in ID11. If I go to my add workspace item, this is where I usually add the building blocks to our system. Now when I select drivers, our integrated drivers store is here. So everything will show up, all RTI certified drivers, completely up to date. And if you selected a driver, you could get to see more information, or you could jump to our new driver store. So this new driver store will be a lot nicer, a lot easier to find things, and you could access that in the Apex software. So that feature is available. Also, it will tell you if any of your drivers are out of date. We'll show you where that finds it in a second. Now, we will be adding third-party drivers as well, but there'll always be a need for being able to add your own drivers, such as maybe your company created specific drivers for your own use. Maybe you have some utility drivers that are no longer supported out there. So if you toggle library to user, now all of your drivers will show up that are in your driver directory where the software is looking for it. So you can always fall back on this option and get your own drivers here. Okay. And of course, if you select a driver from the list, if it needs to be updated, it will tell you it needs to be updated. And now you could open the store page directly from the driver and access all the files, if any, are included with the driver, including the driver version and the zip file and any kind of documentation. So huge time-saving features for our dealers. No need to download drivers anymore. You're going to love the integrated driver store. I think it's an incredible feature. All right, we've also added and integrated in, besides our drivers, a weather driver with every project. So now if you create a new project, your weather will automatically be included. And not just your weather, we've now added all the system variables for the clock driver to System Manager, which we'll show you later on. So now you don't need to bring in your clock driver anymore, because every system will be automatically will be able to access all the clock and time and date variables. Okay, so incredible time saving added. We have given you the ability to map page layouts for either non-optimized drivers or drivers that don't create any pages. Let's show you what I mean. So in the past, let's go add a driver that's not optimized. We'll add the Lutron Cassetta driver. Now in the past, when we've added this driver and we've added it to our system, it wouldn't create any pages for us, which had to require us now to go to the page wizard and add pages. Now, if you add a driver that's not optimized, or even a driver that doesn't create pages like XP Diagnostics or any of those drivers that doesn't create pages, it will now give you a drop down here that will allow you to select a page template to add for all your controllers if checked. So all my controllers are checked, so I'll add a lighting page for my Lutron cassette or RA2 select driver. And I'm going to add that now. So not only will it add the driver, but now it will add the page templates for me, which is going to save me a lot of time. Let me just pull this down and show you that now you'll have the ability to create these on the fly. Not just for this, but any driver that's not optimized. Okay. Let's talk about our integrated system properties, or our system properties that are inherited. We all know that every project has overall system properties. So if you select File, System Properties, here's where you go and set your location and your clock. And let's do that. So we'll set our location. So I happen to be in Florida, so I'll just set this over here to let's go down to the O's because I'm close to Orlando. And now let's go to the clock location and set this to Eastern time. And now all the controllers on this system will inherit the location and clock. I don't go and need to do that for all the controllers on this system now. Plus, we've added an 802.11 tab for those Wi-Fi controllers. Now you can add it all in one place. So we'll put a network here. I'm just going to add a network, and we'll add some credentials here and a password. Now, once I click OK, if I go to any controller in the system, like my T4X, and select Properties, you'll notice my clock is getting its time from the system properties because this is checked by default. Okay. Also, my 802.11 tab has my network also. Okay. Now you can always uncheck this if you want and add another type of network, but these features are just another added time saving. Okay. So now your system properties will be inherited by all the controllers in the project when it comes to location, time, and your Wi-Fi network. Okay? Okay, so let's now go and look at a great feature that you're going to love, something that RTI dealers have been asking for a long time, backgrounds. So we give you a beautiful deep sea background. That's the name of this background for Coral. And it looks beautiful, but we want to change a background, and we don't just want to change it here. We want to change it across the board. In the past, you had to drag a background to every page. Not fun and time consuming. And this is a relatively small project, but God knows some of you have lots and lots of sources and lots of pages. So now, if you go to your page properties by right-clicking on the background, make sure you're not selecting a bitmap or a graphic, and go to your page properties, both for landscape and portrait if it applies, you're going to see a default background and a custom background. And you can see that default background is checked, and this is our default background. Now, as long as this is on default background and we drag one over, let's go to our bitmaps, let's go to our Coral backgrounds, which, by the way, while I'm here, we've added a feature here that allows you to search through your bitmaps a lot easier. It's a filter. Now, in the past, it looked like this. You have to weed through lots of different backgrounds, some that are small, some that are in a different orientation. Now select Filter, and now you get only the backgrounds that apply to the controller you're on. This will filter out all images that are of different size. And the cool part about this is, if I flip the orientation, this will flip with it, which is pretty cool. So I'll go and look for a background for this page and all the other pages. I'll take the purple background. Now, if you go and look through the interface, you'll see that it applied my changes to every single page. Okay? Now, maybe our Please Wait page, we want to use Deep Sea. We don't want to use the purple. We want a little contrast when it jumps to the Please Wait page. So again, I'm going to right click on an area outside any graphics, page properties, and now I'm going to select use custom background. And now once I click OK, this will expect me to drop in a custom background. So let's look for our deep sea background. Here it is, and drag it in. Now that it's a custom background, it won't change it everywhere. Okay? Now, if you change your mind, you can always go to your page properties, and now you can set all pages to use the default background. And once you do that, everything will be as it was before with the same page background. So now we've given you the ability to change page backgrounds, which has been a request from dealers for a long time. So we've listened and we've delivered, and we've also given you a filter to filter out your bitmaps so that any images that don't belong to that screen size are removed, making it easy to find them. All right, let's go now and look at the next feature because we got a lot more for you. We've given you new fonts and font sizes on almost all the RTI controllers, including RTI panel, KA panels, KX, CX. Let's take a look. Let's go right click, edit text, and now you're going to see lots of different types of fonts available. Montresat comes in different font names. Roboto. These are common in the automation industry, and they can really dress up your interface. In addition, we've given you some tighter font sizes and have increased them. So now you go anywhere from 6 points to 200 points, something that's been requested for a long time as well. So now you can give your interfaces a little bit of snap and change them subtly to look different. Okay? So that's the new font sizes and fonts available on almost all the RTI controllers. All right, here's a cool feature. While we're on the lighting page, let's show you the ability now to use our new custom sliders. Now you want to change the size of a slider, you can pull it by the frame handles and drag it. So I'm going to grab these frame handles, and I'm going to drag this. Okay, I've got this one day. Here we go. I can drag this to be as large or as small as I want. And we've given you different types of sliders to use. Let's take a look. I'm going to go to my elements and I'm going to look for sliders. This also applies to gauges as well. We've given you some great sliders in two different sizes, one for the smaller remotes and one for the larger remotes. So now you can drag and drop and change your sliders pretty easily. I really like the blue color. Okay, and if you drag one in, you can now resize this as large as you want, or you could grab the middle frame handles and you can create a vertical slider as well, any size you want. Okay, so now you have the ability to drag these horizontally and vertically, and we give you several slider. And if you look at the gauge, same thing with the gauge. You can bring this into the software and resize this any way you like. We've given you a couple of those as well. So I know RTI dealers are going to love that feature. Okay, now let's show you some of those variables that are in the system manager that are now accessible anywhere you need them. So I'm going to show you examples of text variables and visible state variables because different items will show up, but this will help get a look at this. You know what? I'm going to go to this one real quick. This way it's easier to see here in the window. And I'm going to bring this up here and I'm going to go and look at my different variables. Here we go. This is easy to see. All right. So for every room, you get to know the name of the room. So you could set these up as variables. So if you change the room name, it now will change anywhere where you have the room name located. So this is a cool a cool little variable there. Source for the family room, source return visible. This is really good for visible states, otherwise it'll just give you a true false here. But what this means is you've jumped from an audio or video source to an other source, and now your source return state is visible. This is really handy to put these back buttons, make them visible based on this variable, so that whenever you jump from an audio source or a video source to a source categorized as other, this will show up anything like the back button. So great feature. Family room source return location. Works hands in hand with that. This means that if you jump from a audio or a video source to an other source, this will always show you what source you got to go back to, the source that's in use. So if I'm on my Blu-ray and I jump to my home page, which is displaying this variable, it'll say now controlling Blu-ray. You get to know if your source lists are visible. And of course you have variables for your lists as well. Those are the source room selection and so on. We'll skip these for now because we're going to show you that in a more advanced training. You get to know if a family room or any room is on or off, if the audio in the room is on or off, if the video in the room is on or off, the state of the room. And you get to add variables for the names of each source and if it's selected. Now selected is different than in use. If I select the Blu-ray, my Blu-ray is selected. Then I go and select the home page, my home page is selected. Then I go from my home page to my lighting is selected, but my lighting is not selected. So that's selected source. Okay, we'll skip the next two rooms because it's just the same variables. We've also given you layer visibility for the source, room, and power, so that those menus can pop up independently when you press these buttons, which again is all programmed for you. Okay. We've also given you, which I forgot to show you, if I skipped over it, the selected room is now rolled into System Manager. So it used to be in Room Proxy in Apex. Now in ID11, selected room is now part of System Manager. This allows you to create a room list. It also allows you to select a room and create variables when a room is selected or not selected. Okay, so that's System Manager. Then you have in use. Now in use means an audio or video source is in use. It doesn't count other type of sources. And the only reason why you see, sources here like home pages that would be other is because you can potentially make those audio or video. So this is basically source and use tracking, which a lot of people want to use. You could also use system variables for this. You could use visible states and all other types of variables. So now you get to track what's in use in the software. We talked about visibility layers, and now you have the ability to track the time and date variables that used to exist in the clock driver. Now we've rolled these into System Manager, so now you get to use these variables with every project, no driver needed. Sum total, a lot quicker to program, an express lane, tons of productivity features, and a stunning template to really give your clients a great experience. That's Integration Designer 11. I can't wait to see all of you at our next training. We're going to really go into some of these features and how to really get those projects done quickly. And for those guys who are doing custom, how to get in and out quick on those too. So thank you so much for attending. We'll see you soon. And please, if you haven't downloaded Integration Designer 11, please do so now. Thanks for watching.